Pick a side. Political parties heed the call for unity and try to back one nominee for the White House. Plus, the key races in San Diego and some unexpected results ahead of the fall election.
When I get in the ring and when I go in the mitts and so forth with the fighters and so forth, all my symptoms kind of go away.
He's still fighting. The special connection shared by Manny Pacquiao's trainer and the late Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah, ocean's that way.
Get out of their way. 4 sea lions are heading home after some TLC from San Diego vets. The weather trend that may be a factor in a number of marine animal rescues. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma. The Democratic Party is now on a quest for unity as Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders shows no signs of giving up his White House bid. President Obama meets with him in the Oval Office tomorrow. Associated Press reporter Diane Kepley takes a look at what has led up to that moment.
Presumptive Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton has won the Democratic presidential primary in the state of California. The result came in early Wednesday morning following a late night of vote counting. Both Clinton and her Democratic rival, Senator Bernie Sanders, had fought hard for votes in the nation's most populous state.
I don't think anybody knows what will end up here in California, but I suspect the gap will significantly diminish.
In all, 6 states held contests Tuesday. In addition to California, Clinton won in New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. Sanders won in Montana and North Dakota. He's vowed to keep fighting until the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. Diane Kepley, The Associated Press.
Now that the Republican primary season is over, San Diego Republicans remain divided on their presumptive nominee. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh says it's raising questions over how the party will move forward into the fall.
The response seemed muted when a crowd of Trump supporters marched through the Republican watch party at the U.S. Grand Hotel Tuesday night. It was one sign that not everyone was on the same page. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer didn't seem any closer to endorsing Trump. Neither did former Mayor Jerry Sanders.
I don't think that anybody's unified on any issue right now, and I think there's a lot of time between now and the general election to see how this washes out, but I don't think it looks very promising right now to get a unified party.
Making things more difficult, Sanders called the comments Donald Trump made against the Mexican heritage of the San Diego judge in the Trump University case pure racism. In a series of tweets, Ted Cruz spokesman and former state and San Diego County Chair Ron Nearing seemed to urge delegates to revolt against the nominee when the party meets in Cleveland this summer. Meeting party unity may not happen at all this year. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer pulled off an easy election victory yesterday. He won in a landslide, avoiding a November runoff. He says his style of governing is to focus on bipartisan collaboration.
And I think that tonight's strong numbers across the aisle, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, I think affirms the right approach, not just here locally, but what we need to see more of in our state and in our country. You see him?
There was speculation Faulconer might run for California governor in 2018, but he says no, pledging to serve a full 4 years in office. The race for the 49th Congressional District, that's the seat currently held by Republican Darrell Issa, was surprisingly close. Incumbent Issa came out on top with about 51%, but Doug Applegate, a Democrat, came in second with 45% of the vote. Applegate and Issa will face off in November. Earlier today, KPBS reporter Eric Anderson sat down with UC San Diego political science professor Thad Kauser to put this race and others into perspective.
So let's talk a little bit about the most surprising race last night in the 49th Congressional District. Darrell Issa, incumbent, easy challenges in years past, but not so much last night. What happened?
Yeah, this is a race that no one was focused on, maybe not even Congressman Issa, but like many California Republicans, he didn't do nearly as well as expected, and looks like he may face a tight race in November, although there's a district where Republicans have about an 8 percentage point lead. But I think it was the combination of two things. One, being associated with Donald Trump, being in the party of Donald Trump, being an endorser of Donald Trump may have pulled him down, especially in a district that has a lot of Latino voters. And secondly, with Donald Trump sewing up the Republican race, there wasn't that push to get Republicans to the polls, and that would have helped Congressman Issa.
So it might have been an anomaly linked to the primary itself.
This was a much bluer primary electorate than we've seen in years past in California, because this was the center of the world for the Democrats. Didn't bring a lot of Republicans to the polls. I think things could look very different in November.
That said, there was a good night for Republicans in the city of San Diego. Kevin Faulconer won outright.
Yeah, so Kevin Faulconer's big win, getting well over the 50% hurdle, I think shows, first of all, that voters are very satisfied with what he's done in his bipartisan leadership. But I think it also shows that, you know, with all the scandals we've had in City Hall, with the pensions, with this sexual harassment, if you just don't screw things up and steer the ship steady, you've got a pretty good chance. I think voters were just relieved to have a mayor that they could get behind.
Somebody who was competent, someone who represented himself well.
And someone who didn't draw a top-tier challenger. There are a lot of big-time Democrats who stayed out of this race because they didn't think they had a good shot at winning, and this was, in the end, a cakewalk for Mayor Faulconer.
He did it in a city that has an edge in Democrats. Democrats have been picking up some voter registration gains, not just in the city of San Diego, but the rest of the county as well. What's going on there?
Well, there's been a big surge with all the interest in this year's Democratic race, and also with the ways that the state has made it easier to register to vote. So you can register online, and this is bringing a younger electorate, a newer electorate that could transform California politics. But this was Bernie Sanders' hope, that these new voters were going to give him the primary, and that didn't happen. Turnout wasn't quite as high as anyone thought. So getting people registered is one thing, dragging them out to the polls is another.
A big race for the Democrats to focus on was that presidential primary. It probably helped a lot of the down-ticket races as well. But it wasn't as close as some of the polls indicated. And when I looked at the electoral map, I saw Clinton winning in all the big population centers and Bernie's strength actually being in some of the more rural areas.
Absolutely. Well, if you looked at the polling numbers, there were two figures. Hillary Clinton was leading Bernie Sanders by a lot among Democratic registered voters, and Bernie Sanders was narrowing that margin if you looked at the lead that included independents, no party preference voters. But those voters had to know to ask for a Democratic primary ballot when they walked into a polling place, or had to know about a month ago or earlier when they asked for an absentee ballot. And those voters didn't show up, didn't get into the Democratic primary when they did show up, and Bernie Sanders' campaign is effectively over, and Hillary Clinton's the presumptive nominee because of that.
Now, it was a good night for women in the state of California. We look at the U.S. Senate race with Kamala Harris, Loretta Sanchez, two women, Democrats both, who are running now to fill Barbara Boxer's seat.
Yeah, so Barbara Boxer in 1992, elected in the year of the woman that brought two senators from the same state for the first time. Now, not only will she be replaced by another woman, but a woman of color. So Loretta Sanchez or Kamala Harris bring, actually, between them, three different ethnicities to this U.S. Senate race. And so this is part of the transformation of American politics. It's looking a lot different than it did 30 or 40 years ago.
UCSD political science professor Thad Kauser. Thad, thanks very much for talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Chris Ward won a landslide victory in San Diego's 3rd City Council district, which includes downtown, Hillcrest, and North Park. Those neighborhoods are currently laying the groundwork for more housing density, and some residents are reluctant to accept the changes. Ward says there's an opportunity for smart growth.
Well, I'm really excited for the work that I've done on the Uptown plan in particular, to be able to actually put density where it belongs along transit corridors, that we want to try and guide and facilitate development where it makes sense. There has been a little bit of tussle within the community, but I think that's been healthy conversation, maybe taken longer than we would have liked it to, but you're right, the next council member is going to have to implement those plans. And if we can help to transform some of the areas like El Cajon Boulevard, Park Boulevard, some of the other spots where we can accommodate the growth, where we can increase mass transit opportunities, I'm going to be very excited to be a part of that action.
Chris Ward will replace District 3 incumbent Todd Gloria, who was termed out. Gloria is favored to win election to the California State Assembly. Another district race may determine the balance of power on what should be a nonpartisan panel. Entrepreneur Barbara Brie fell short of the vote she needed to avoid a runoff election in District 1 in November. She is expected to face businessman Ray Ellis. Democrats cling to a 5-4 majority. It would be maintained with a Brie victory. Council President Sherry Leitner is being termed out after 8 years. One of the surprises last night was in the race for San Diego City Attorney. Democrat Mara Elliott will face Republican Robert Hickey in the November runoff. Hickey works for the district attorney, while Elliott already works in the city attorney's office.
For somebody coming from the outside who doesn't have a strong civil background or a civil litigation background, it'll be quite challenging. Even when it comes to our criminal division, Bob prosecutes felonies, we prosecute misdemeanors. It's night and day.
We got here because we've been spreading a message of government doing a better job for all San Diegans. Good is not good enough. We have to do better, and we can do better.
Elliott and Hickey say they will focus on issues such as homelessness and domestic violence as they move toward the November election. 2 North County mayors challenged Dave Roberts for his 3rd district seat on the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. Encinitas Mayor Kristen Gaspar will go on to the November runoff. She got 34% of the vote last night, beating out fellow Republican Sam Abed, who is mayor of Escondido. Both GOP candidates had criticized Roberts for an investigation into claims he had misused his staff. Roberts was dismissive of the matter, but Gaspar says it's important because it cost the county $500,000.
So that's $500,000. It's not going to something else. And in D3, there's certainly a lot of places that we could put that money to good use, and it's just been wasted based on his performance in office.
The races for 2 other seats on the Board of Supervisors were settled last night. Greg Cox was re-elected in District 1. He did not face any opposition, and in District 2, Diane Jacob defeated challenger Rudy Reyes by a large margin. Another of the races we've been following is for the District 4 City Council seat in Chula Vista. This is the first year voters there have been able to elect council members by district. The race will go to a runoff in November between former Councilman Rudy Ramirez and retired firefighter Mike Diaz. They were the top 2 finishers in yesterday's vote. Hillary Clinton's claim on the Democratic nomination Tuesday marked progress in American politics. But while many San Diego voters were proud to see a woman leading a presidential ticket, KPBS reporter Megan Burks learned their outlook on the country was a little more complex.
Hillary Clinton made history Tuesday evening at a rally in Brooklyn.
First time in our nation's history that a woman will be a major party's nominee.
There was celebrating in San Diego, too.
I voted for Hillary Clinton.
You did?
Yeah.
19-year-old Abdi Salam Hassan cast his vote for Clinton at Hoover High School in City Heights. But like a lot of San Diegans who spoke with KPBS Tuesday, he wasn't viewing her win through the lens of history. He was thinking about what's next. He was thinking about Republican presumptive nominee Donald Trump.
With my vote, I think and with my friends' votes, we have the power to change the thing. Because if we don't, then we're gonna allow someone else we don't want to become president. So if we're I feel very I have a power in myself to do the right thing. So I feel I don't feel sad at all. I feel very excited. I can do this. My vote matters.
Democrat James Goodman voted for Bernie Sanders and says he isn't sure who will get his support in November.
I'm pretty sure I can't vote for Trump.
Goodman says he may go with a third-party candidate instead of Clinton. He doesn't want to just shatter the glass ceiling. He wants to shatter the status quo.
I've always said people really need to look at tangible items, but here I'm completely going against everything I say. I'm looking for something touchy-feely. I'm looking for authenticity. Something about her just feels that she feels she's owed the presidency. It's her turn, and that turns me off.
A few miles away, Francisco Garcia caught election returns at Nate's Garden Grill. He says despite Clinton's historic win, this election hasn't felt like progress for the country.
Well, I've had this feeling of creepiness for months now.
The 48-year-old says he's concerned that Trump's rhetoric resonates with so many voters. Nearly 1.2 million Californians voted for him. That's compared to Clinton's 1.9 million and Sanders' 1.5 million.
It's more than just Trump. It's America. America America's sick.
Garcia says, sure, Clinton's nomination marks a turning point for women, and Trump's success signals an unprecedented shift in the Republican Party. But he thinks this divisive election cycle also marks a transformative moment for America.
I think I see it as a point of departure into another era, quite frankly. I think we're about to enter an era where people will finally wake up. And it's definitely not because of people that are Generation X or baby boomers. Generation X or baby boomers are part of another, they're not part of the vanguard. The vanguard is younger, and the vanguard is much more enlightened than we were.
Garcia says he believes that means a shift to the left. But talk to people like 26-year-old Francisco Guillen, and the only thing that's certain is young people are looking for a different kind of candidate. Guillen voted for Bernie Sanders Tuesday. In November,
considering my background, I'll probably go vote for Trump just because he's more direct, and I'm hoping more of a Reagan-style leadership rather than Hillary. She's more of a politician, I feel.
For Clinton and Trump, Tuesday was a time to celebrate their unprecedented wins. Less than 24 hours later, both were back on the campaign trail. Clinton trying to show Sanders supporters she's not the status quo. Trump that he's more than a mogul. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
KPBS reporter Taryn Mento contributed to that story. Ballots are still being counted for California's primary election, but how did the state fare in its election process at polling places? Election officials say there was a fair amount of voter confusion yesterday. Hundreds of voters called the National Nonpartisan Voter Hotline about voting problems.
We did get a lot of reports from various counties and polling places where there were a lot of provisional ballots being cast, people who either showed up and didn't have their vote by mail ballot with them or didn't realize they were a vote by mail voter and that they were even sent a ballot, or people who were registered late in the process, close to the deadline, didn't get added to the rolls, their names weren't on the roster.
Officials say turnout may have been close to 8 million, but it may be a couple of weeks before all votes are in. Votes are still being counted in Tijuana's very close race for its next mayor. In the lead by 1 percentage point is Juan Manuel Gastelum of the PAN party. The two main competitors called for a recount, complaining of irregularities, but election officials decided against this today. Cannabis growers in the state could get taxed more harshly if a bill making its way through the Capitol becomes law. Dispensary sales are subject to a 7.5% tax. This new proposal would tax growers anywhere from $1 to $10 per ounce, depending on potency. Proponents of the bill say the revenue would be spent to fix environmental damage caused by cannabis growers.
The growing community would go in and clean up the things that have happened and establish good best management practices and not allow some of this environmental damage to take place. I'd be all for it, but I don't see anybody stepping up to do that.
Marijuana is set to become big business in the state. Recreational pot is up for a vote in November. The bill now heads to the Senate. California's Water Resources Board has given its stamp of approval to a proposal that would make it easier for municipal wastewater plants to recycle sewage water. The recycled water would only be used for non-potable purposes such as irrigation and dust control. Officials say the plan may bring some drought relief to the state.
The drought that's happening here in California, we need to find every way we can to start replacing the potable water with other types of water that you can use for uses. So like irrigation, things like that. Why put potable water on it when you can use the treated wastewater?
State water officials also say the process is cheaper than desalination of ocean water. Warm temperatures will continue tomorrow, but we should see some slight cooling for the weekend. Molly Cochran has more in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Well, we're finally starting to see some changes in the weather pattern as we head into the later half of the week. Here's a look at our radar and satellite. We do have a frontal boundary that's coming into the northern half of California and also pushing into the Pac Northwest, responsible for a little bit more cloud cover near San Francisco and Redding. Even notice some shades of green indicating some showers passing through the higher terrain. But across South California, things are just remaining dry and quiet from LA back towards San Diego. Mexico, and we have been very warm over the past couple days in the interior sections. The coastline staying pretty seasonable for this time of year. So notice a few clouds showing up on satellite. That's really what we'll be contending with as we head into the overnight hours tonight. Low clouds creep back in, but then you know the drill. By the afternoon, the sunshine able to burn off those clouds pretty quickly. So pretty quiet night for the most part across the viewing area. Temperature-wise in the 60s along the immediate coastline. A few degrees lower in the interior sections, mainly towards Ramona and back towards Mount Laguna with a low of 53 tonight. Into Thursday, the heat remains on for some. That does include near Las Vegas and Phoenix. Meanwhile, San Diego, you're going to be along the immediate coastline feeling a little bit cooler, but we will again see those clouds to start, some sunshine by the afternoon. Pretty standard also for San Francisco, some lower clouds in the morning and then some sunshine able to peek through by the time we head into the PM hours. Here's a look at our 5-day outlook along the coastline. Gearing up for the weekend, we'll have some low clouds on Friday, temperature of 73 degrees. Pretty similar setup into Saturday and Sunday, and temperatures are pretty close to where we should be at for this time of year, not only in the afternoon but also into the overnight hours. As we take a look farther inland, Saturday and Sunday, low clouds breaking for sunshine, temperature of 72 for both Saturday and Sunday, and we will remain dry as we head back to work on Monday. Across the mountains, partly sunny skies for Thursday, plenty of bright sunshine on Friday. That's going to be sticking around for the upcoming weekend. Temperatures during the afternoon in the lower to mid 70s. Across the deserts, it is still just very warm, triple-digit heat once again on Thursday and Friday with plenty of bright sunshine. We'll be in the mid to upper 90s for Saturday and Sunday, so temperatures start to come down, but it is still quite hot, and that sunshine will be out in full swing. Molly Cochran, KPBS News.
Nearly 1,400 people are expected for a service honoring the life of Muhammad Ali tomorrow. Fans waited in line for hours to secure the golden ticket for the boxing legend's memorial service. The tickets were handed out on a first-come, first-served basis. Many of those waiting in line shared stories of how Ali had touched their lives.
And the reason why I love him so much, because he was unapologetically black. And that caused me to be a civil rights activist way back then, and I'm still on the battlefield at 67. So for me, Ali is Louisville.
The service will be a Janazah prayer. It will give U.S. Muslims a chance to say goodbye to a man considered a hero of their faith. An interfaith memorial service is planned for Friday. Another boxing legend found common ground with Ali. Former boxer Freddie Roach fights on after living with Parkinson's for the last 3 decades. Associated Press reporter Luke Sheridan explains the unexpected connection they found inside the ring.
As Freddie Roach climbed into the ring at Mendez Gym, his symptoms of Parkinson's, the slight tremor in his hands, the tilt in his neck were apparent. But as the trainer, famous for his work with Manny Pacquiao, started pad work with Chinese Olympian Zhu Zhiming, those symptoms vanished. Boxing is Roach's comfort zone. It was Muhammad Ali's too. Roach said when Ali visited his gym around 15 years ago, a surprising connection was made in their shared battle with Parkinson's.
When he started hitting the heavy bag, his tremors went away and he had no problems at all. And it's like when I have Parkinson's also, and when I get in the ring and when I go on the mitts and so forth with the fighters and so forth, all my symptoms kind of go away.
Roach said he only spent 4 hours with Ali, but found common ground with the boxing legend.
We talked a little bit about the medication at that time. He was having trouble with the dopamine. It's very hard to take. It makes you really sick. It's really hard to get used to, and sometimes you'd rather not take it.
At 56, Roach isn't slowing down and is now preparing Zhiming for his U.S. debut.
Zhiming Zhao is a great guy to train. He's full of talent, and he is a great amateur boxer, and he has a great amateur style. I'm just trying to get him to convert over to more of a pro style.
Roach had one other connection with Ali. When he was still a fighter, his trainer was Eddie Futch, who also trained Joe Frazier, one of Ali's biggest rivals.
Maybe I didn't think he was the best fighter in the world and so forth, but now I do.
Luke Sheridan, The Associated Press.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, a look at the latest experiments astronauts are trying to protect themselves against fire in space. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
A Comic-Con museum may be coming to Balboa Park. Comic-Con International is talking with the San Diego Hall of Champions about leasing space at the Sports Museum. A spokesman for Comic-Con says a museum would give them a year-round location to promote pop culture. 4 sea lions returned to the ocean today after being rescued and rehabilitated by veterinarians at SeaWorld. They were found at local beaches earlier this year, malnourished and dehydrated. Rescuers chose Borderfield State Beach for their release this morning.
We want them to go out to the islands here. They have fish and they have other sea lions that are in that area. It just creates a really good opportunity for a successful return.
El Nino continues to have a negative effect on California marine mammals. So far this year, SeaWorld San Diego has rescued more than 400. That's more than double the number in a normal year. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Morning Edition. The route through Mexico that migrants take to try to get to the U.S. has changed, and some of it has become more dangerous. Coming up, the human and financial cost of migration through Central America. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.